that time of day again.
It's my favorite time of day. We're drinking Comatose Imperial IPA from Good Life.
It's definitely got a flavor to it.
It's called Comatose because it's going to make you want to take a nap.
Oh, 8.5% alcohol by volume.
Oh, wow.
That's why it's good.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So this is another beer that came from Oregon. I believe it was from my mom and her trip to Oregon.
Dude, it's really good.
Yeah. Can't get this stuff in Utah. You want to know why? Because it's good.
A couple of these, you'd be drunk.
Yeah, a little bit. Just 2 or 3. You're good. Sit in a hot tub for a while. Have a bonfire.
So at my house, we like the Old Englishes. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
They're like 40 ounce. They're about like 8%.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they're always out at the liquor store by me. You know, we're from Utah again. If you want high gravity liquor, you got to go to the Mormon store, right?
Yes.
They're always out of Old English, right?
Mm-hmm.
And finally they were in, and my roommate bought a whole case. He bought them all.
You have to.
I don't know if that's like regular, like throughout all liquor stores. They never have them.
Yeah, I don't know. They used to, they don't carry my favorite beer in our liquor store anymore that I've seen because I like the Orange Boom. We've actually had it on the show once and can't freaking find it anywhere. So I don't know where I can get it. I think Harmon's has it though. But speaking of bonfires, how's your wood doing?
I fucking
burning through it.
It's so much fun. It's like, you know what? I have nothing to do. Let's go start a fire in the backyard. Yeah. My neighbors probably hate me. I always have a little fire going every weekend.
Yeah. Good old arson.
So I am really excited for the episode tonight because it's a continuation. It's a part 3 of Mel's Hole. Plus, Britton will be doing some filler episodes, and I assume there's a theme right here, right?
Yeah. So I think of Mel's Hole as kind of like, I think it's a terrifying thing, a terrifying piece of the wilderness or whatever. So I just went to Reddit and I typed in like the creepiest things they found. So I found urban explorers and the creepiest things they found while exploring.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. So we've already done 2 parts of Mel's Hole. And essentially it's a guy who finds a bottomless pit on his property and he's just dropping shit down it. A lot of things happen. This is going to be covering call 3 that he had coast to coast 3 years after his initial call with Art Bell.
We just keep coming back to this freaking hole. And I think that, he's thrown like a fridge down there. Was I dreaming or has there been a car that's been put down?
No, we joked about it though. Okay. Throwing a Toyota down there.
Yeah, okay. It was a joke.
Just
I was like
kept running all the way down. They never break down.
Yeah. So, I think people are throwing dead dogs down there.
This reminds me of my favorite creepypasta, and I actually got a snippet of it. I'm going to play it.
Okay.
As for how deep, no way to tell, right? I mean, we've tried. We started with just tossing like pebbles and shit down there. They'd plink against the walls, but then they'd just get swallowed up. It's so fucking dark down there, man. You throw a rock or something like a big fucking stone, you know? But as soon as it falls the first 5 or 10 feet, you can't see it anymore. It's just like whoosh and it's gone, swallowed up. Almost like there's liquid or water or something down there. But there's not. We've hung ropes with buckets and everything, but nope, it's just empty air. Just empty darkness. It's fucking weird, man. It's cool, though. So we tried to figure out how deep it was a couple times. Started with, throwing bigger shit down there. Bigger rocks and shit from the garden. We never heard anything hit bottom. Then my buddy Marty had the idea to bring his kid's toy. This big light-up keyboard thing, where if you press a button on it, it played a nursery rhyme song. It was his kid's favorite toy. I feel kind of bad about that. But we had to know. We had to, gather data, you know? So we switch on the keyboard to, one of those demo tracks, and it lights up and starts playing, and we toss it down the hole. And dude, trust me, it was so weird. So I said, how's it really fucking dark down there? Well, we could see the toy's light blinking on and off for a few seconds. But once it went maybe about 50 feet, they completely disappeared. We probably should have still been able to see the lights, but nope. It's like there's a threshold where all light is just fucking swallowed up. Or maybe the tunnel curves, I don't know. Maybe there's science behind it. Anyway, the really weird part is, we could hear the song kept playing as it fell. Fucking Ode to Joy, it never stopped. That fucker played the whole song for way too long. It got pretty quiet and echoey near the end. I guess because of how far away it was. But that keyboard never hit bottom. We probably even could have heard it if it kept playing, but the song ended. The piano was pretty big, too. Like, maybe this long across?
Sam shows me a space about 2 feet between his hands.
It would have made a huge crash when it hit bottom, but we never heard anything.
So, favorite creepypasta ever, and I'll cite it for you guys. It's called Infected Town by Mr. Creepypasta. It's about 4 hours long, but oh my god, it is a great thing to listen to.
4 hours long?
Yeah, if you're ever like just driving, for a long period of time, it's kind of cool to listen to. Really well written, well narrated, and that was like not the best quality of recording. It sounds much better if you were to watch it on YouTube. So check it out.
Say the like piano background noises were kind of throwing me off. I was like, and they're probably going for like a creepy feel.
Well,
it's just distracting me.
And so this is like, there's a bunch of little stories in it, but there's like this apartment complex, and this lady finds like a hole, and it's like back behind like the shared laundry, and these people like develop this cult, and they start to worship it, and they just go and they stare at it like 8 hours a day. And throughout the story, you can tell that they keep getting more and more attached to the hole, and they're like, man, the hole must be lonely. It's like they want to just jump in, right? Like, that's what it seems like they're being compelled to do. Like, they would rather, instead of living, just jump in the hole. And I won't ruin any of this for you. But check it out.
You said we'll put the link in the description?
Yeah, we can put it in there.
Okay.
So let's jump into Mel's hole.
Let's not. But let's talk about
It's a
it
big
for a
black hole.
thrice time.
So, after not hearing from Mel for over 3 years, Art was able to get back in touch with him and get him on the air once more. Almost immediately, Art asked Mel if the entire story was just another Blair Witch Project type of hoax, to which Mel says that it's not. He was just looking for some help when he first sent the original fax back in 1997 and didn't think things would end up going the way it did.
So like 3 years later, he's like, okay, you got to be honest with me. Was this some kind of hoax?
Well, they're not like within communication.
Right.
This is just some guy that called in a radio show, right? It's coast to coast. And what's funny is I think that the Blair Witch Project, I guess Art Bell thought it was real, the Blair Witch Project, because that's how they used to market it. Like,
really?
Yeah, the Blair Witch was like the first mockumentary. And the way they tried to market it is they're like, found footage of kids going to the woods. And
you know what was real in that show? The goddamn snot.
Yeah, that was nasty.
That was real.
Scene. Oh my god. There's some cool theories about like what that show actually was about. Like if like one of the people was actually a serial killer and they were trying to lure her out to murder her. It was like there was no witch.
Yeah. I may have already covered this too, but I actually have an autograph of one of the 3 people in the Blair Witch Project.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I don't remember. Mark?
Well, the guy who made it was in Utah, wasn't he?
I believe so. But I do this thing. It's a subscription called the BAM Box. I send you a monthly autographed horror thing every month. And that was one of them. It's probably one of the coolest autographs I think I have.
That's way cool. Because it had been a few years since the original calls, Art asked Mel to go over the story from the beginning once again for new listeners and to see if Mel kept his facts straight. Well,
he's like, we tell it again, so I'm going to catch any inconsistencies that you may have.
That's a big thing, though. Like, people that lie about stories, like, they'll kind of deviate to what the original lie was.
It just becomes more and more, like, crazy. Like, oh, man, this alien crawled out of it.
And then that's when I rode the flamingo out of the hole and saved the motherland.
I named him Jeffrey.
One thing he mentions very early on this call is that his wife was actually the owner of the property. He brings up the fact that they had a couple of buildings and trailers out there, and that he lived in a trailer on the property. Mel brings up his interest and work in natural plant healing and how it relates to Native American practices. He says that he had met a woman from Ellensburg and got married, but have since broken up. So that's like a story of how he met his wife.
He pushed her in the hole. We broke up, and then, yeah, I've never seen her again. How come?
That's weird.
Well,
She just
pushed her down the hole.
I heard she fell to a bad place.
She's probably still falling today.
Art and Mel touch back on the original story, and Mel brings up a new fact that he failed to mention before. A Mexican man used to regularly come and dump tires down the hole.
Why, though?
Well, he would collect them from various used tire places and discard them in the pit. So there's logic behind it, right? So you have to pay to dispose of tires.
Yeah.
So if you have a bottomless pit, you just go, hey, man, I'll take these tires off your hand. You pay me some fractional amount. And he just loads up a truck, goes to a bottomless pit, and just throws them down.
That makes sense. I thought like you were saying like he collected them. Like he's like, oh, I'm a tire collector, and then just throws them in the hole.
Yeah.
Like there's better things to do with your time, but getting paid, sure.
And apparently he visited the hole a lot of times with like full trailers of just tires. We just throw them in there. Mel speculates that he dumped thousands upon thousands of tires in there.
I wonder if he ever just detached the trailer and let it fall in all the tires.
So Art and Mel describe the well again, to which Mel says that it was about 9 feet across and round with some stonework. He says that he built a metal cover for the top so that it could be closed for safety reasons. He was worried that someone could fall into it and that you just never know what would happen to them. So I'm going to play just another clip here of him talking about it. We're going back to the original call, ladies and gentlemen.
I had written to you, and I said, I've basically let like 80,000 feet worth of monofilament fishing line, you know.
Well, yeah, but there's even more before that. I mean, you said that people were throwing like dead cows in there.
Yeah, the cows. I used to love, one of my favorite things to chuck in there was like television tubes. Man, I'd throw television tubes, the picture tube down there. And
it was big enough so you could drop it. In other words, the hole, I take it, for as far as one could see or hear, went straight down. It must have.
If I would hold something over like towards the center of the hole, I couldn't go all the way to the center because going about 9 feet across, that's more than 4.5 feet across. But
sure.
If I held something out like the size of a picture tube, 19-inch picture tube from an old TV set, and drop that in there, I would never hear it hit anything. It would just fall.
And fall, and fall, and fall.
And that's what made me curious, is that how come, I didn't hear a splash.
No crash.
No crashing, I could hear something if I didn't get things like dead center there, and if it spun and...
If it would hit the sides, yeah.
But then eventually that sound would give up too, so...
By the way, going back, do you have any idea what this hole originally was? Was it anything? Was it something that anybody dug, do you think? Was it something that was naturally always there? Or what do you think it was?
As far as I can determine, and everyone that I'd spoken with, so that hole has always been associated with that property. One person that I talked to says, well, as far as we know, the hole there, and your property's been there as long as the whalebone has been in the tree out there in Ellensburg. Ellensburg is a strange place. We've got a tree out in Ellensburg.
Yes.
On someone's yard.
Yes.
There's a whalebone jaw growing out of the tree.
What?
Yeah, the jaw of a whalebone, and it's like embedded in the tree.
Are you telling me the truth?
Yeah, you can go to. In fact, I was familiar with it because I used to walk the neighborhoods there and see it. You could see the tree, but you could actually go to the Yakima Herald newspaper.
Yeah.
You could see a picture of it.
I love to. What?
Yeah.
Are you telling me the truth?
I like how he casually brings this up on the third call. It's like, yeah, the neighbors have said it's been here as long as, the whale jawbone has been in the tree.
What?
Yeah, apparently that I looked it up. Like there is a newspaper article with the whale's jawbone in a tree.
Wow,
so it's kind of strange. The bone has been there for over 100 years, and the hole has been there too. Ellensburg, the town, has only been there for 150 years or so, and the hole is likely older than that. Mel is unsure what the stone wall was built around. However,
well, damn, just seeing a tree with a whalebone. I wonder how far away it is from this hole.
Yeah, and I gotta say, we're probably the only people out there who are doing a deep dive on this. This is a very popular episode on Coast to Coast.
Talking about a hole for 3 episodes. All right, well, I don't have a hole, per se, to talk about. Maybe it's kind of like a cave, but this story comes from Toodleboog. And it says, back in Tennessee, where I used to live, I don't anymore, my family and I took a trip to Ruby Falls over in Chattanooga and to Lookout Mountain. Ruby Falls had flooded recently and had just drained enough for tours to continue. There was still standing water inside when we went, and they said that the tunnels had been completely filled with water. I was small at the time, maybe 8 or 9, but as we were going through the caves, learning about the person who had discovered it and his friend, and had to crawl through 2-foot openings on their stomachs to finally reach the waterfall, me and my brother thought it was a really smart time to go off and explore. A 2-foot opening.
Yeah, no. I would be like, nope, not going.
I have zero desire to spelunk like that.
I can't do it. It scares me.
Yeah. Very claustrophobic in that sense. There were things to keep us on the trail in the tunnel, like chicken wire and the cracks that led off to other places, but I think me and my brother managed to find a loose part and slip through. The wire part may be completely made up, but I do remember having to go through something. I should also mention that my brother was 11 and super skinny, so he was able to go through this crack with only a little difficulty.
I wonder what's on the other side.
We had been walking through this super narrow hallway-like crack that gradually turned sideways as we went in. It was probably about 10 feet long, but to my 8-year-old brain felt like a lot. When we get to the end, my brother freezed and told me to go back and turned around really fast, ushering me out. It was hard since we were crawling through diagonally, but I remember smelling a funny smell. It's kind of a sweet mixed with the smell of swamp water. May have just been the cave, but I had looked past him and seen a jacket, like a winter coat-like jacket, and it was blue.
It's a dead body.
We crawled out of the crack and back to the group, and I got a cut on my arm from the rocks. This isn't important, I just remembered it. We ran to the group, and no one had noticed we were missing, as we had been gone for only about 5 to 10 minutes. My parents didn't even notice. If your kids are missing in a cave for 5 to 10 minutes, you're going to notice.
Hey, maybe they're playing Yahtzee or something, you know? They're busy.
Yeah, that's true. Let's go play Yahtzee in the middle of this cave.
Oh, yeah.
It took me a few years to realize that this was that there was a person in that jacket and that the smell was them decomposing. I just asked my brother about this, and he said that he had seen white hair on the person and it was moving because of a breeze. So most likely it was a homeless person who had either found some way in from outside and gotten stuck and maybe even drowned when it had flooded. But I'm feeling kind of sick realizing this. It's been years since this happened, but my stomach drops every time I think about it.
Yeah, that's nasty.
What do you do if you're just going through these tunnels and you just find a dead body?
Calmly turn around and tell the authorities.
That's therapy. That is therapy.
I wouldn't like shake his hand. Look, a back scratcher.
Take the arm with you. This is a hell of a back scratcher. It's coming with me. So this is from Fuzzy Elf 47. Little damn Fuzzy Elf. I explored a mental health facility that closed down in 1986. I really want to do that. I want to go tour some haunted places.
I'd be down.
I know this because all of the patients' files were still there, and the visitor logs ended one day in 1986. They were covered in soot from multiple fires, dust and other grime. But you could sit there among the crack pipes, broken glass, and heroin needles and read about patients, their daily lives, how often relatives came to visit them, details on their medication, etc. It was weird having such insight into the lives of mentally ill individuals or just social rejects committed there by uncaring families, as often happened back in the day, without having any idea what happened to them after that day in 1986. Homeless, returning to their families, maybe even some of the very junkies who still frequented the place. Or they just went to live perfectly normal lives, having no idea their history of mental illness was on display in an abandoned building behind a Long John Silver's.
Well, every time I get that itch, I just go do math in the mental asylum. I just love doing math.
Just go down to Long John Silver's, get a fish and chips plate, and then go back with all the broken heroin needles.
Dude, that seems like if I did a lot of math, like subtraction and addition, you know, it sounds like I would go to a Long John Silver's, kind of tweak out there, and then go to a mental asylum. Seems like kind of a regular routine.
Basically.
Back to Mel's Hole. Let's jump into history of Mel. He previously lived in California and worked as a shark fisherman. He had some spare fishing line and decided to send down about 1,200 yards or 3,600 feet.
Did you say shark fisherman?
Yeah.
I would never fish for shark.
Britton, you're either on the top of the food chain or you're not.
You're very right.
Yeah. So, Mel, dude, he's just an alpha. Yeah.
He's just an alpha.
Yeah.
I wonder if he brought home a shark and threw it in the hole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, being a shark fisherman, so you're going to have like strong fishing line, is a little experience there. So anyways, what he originally did to start gauging the depth of the hole is he'd get the fishing line, he would tie, I think, a lifesaver to the bottom of it, and he would just, and a 1 pound lead, and he would just let it go down and down and down. The lifesaver would like tell you if you hit water because it would dissolve if you were to reel it back up and it was gone. Anyways, he allowed the line to sit before pulling it up. After leaving the line down there for an hour or two, he'd bring it back up and the candy was dry, meaning that it didn't stop and hit water. Mel said that he could still sense the weight on the line as it was down the hole, and he could still move it side to side with a bit of effort. And before taking a break on this call, Art mentions that Mel is back from Australia, but they would continue with the original story before getting to that. They talk about how there have been other stories of mysterious holes around the world, and that his story wasn't completely unique in those regards.
This world is full of mysterious holes.
Mel talks about how he is still adding line and goes down the hole without hitting anything. Callers suggest that at some point, the weight on the line in the terms of a reference would not matter, as the weight would be greater and would just keep the line going down. Mel says that he would attach a fisherman's scale, and it read 17 to 18 pounds of total line that would be down the hole, including the lead weight. So essentially what that means is because he's weighing the amount of line hanging from gravity, is that it's not like coiled up on the ground somewhere. So it's just hanging. It hasn't hit a bottom. A lot of the critics were saying, well, once you have like just 1 pound of line down there, it's just going to keep going even though it hit the ground. But because he put in a fisherman's scale, it's saying, no, it's suspended. There's no bottom here. Anyways, all that told, he had 80,000 feet of line down the hole.
Good God.
He confirms that he never brought the total amount of line back up, as it would have taken far too much effort. He would buy fishing line and huge bolts in order to get a good deal and have enough of it. The only issues he ran into was when he had to hook up the original lines to the outrigger line to continue on to the next line. He says that even though he hit 80,000 feet of line, that it wasn't at the bottom of the hole. So I'm going to bring up some creepy shit he brings up right after this.
About the related story, the only thing that we kind of think came out of it is some guy who had a hunting dog that passed away. The dog died. He put the dog in the hole, threw the dog in the hole, and it was the belief of several people that the dog came back from the dead.
And out of the hole?
Well, they didn't see it from the hole. They saw the dog out, around town and in the area and stuff. And
so then you're telling me the guy threw his dead dog in the hole, and then the same dog was seen later around.
Right. That's right. In fact, there was one other.
Well, I always wondered, Mel. You once told me when you died.
Yes.
You wanted to be thrown in the hole.
That was in my will, and that's how I wanted my remains to be dealt with.
Or reverently dropped, I guess.
Well, I was willing to take that journey. I thought it would be a great journey. I believe when I wrote to you, I said that the hole was kind of my dogs wouldn't go anywhere near it and things like that. It kind of had a weird feeling.
Well, maybe they knew that another dog got tossed out.
Well, that could be, but there was a weird just an eerie sense about it. And I thought about that because after I talked to you, I said, what was and actually I would get kind of a strange feeling to it. I'm going to kind of describe the feeling to you.
All right, please.
The sensation that you got there. Have you ever been surprised by the moon? It's like you go out, you look out the window, and the moon is up there, and it's like for a second you don't realize it's the moon.
Sure.
You get that eerie sense, and then then your brain puts together that it is the moon.
Yeah, sure. That's happened to everybody.
You get, but that feeling is like you got that feeling a lot around the hole there.
Oh,
you felt that feeling. It was that kind of feeling that you would have. You get that sense that you were constantly surprised by the moon during the day or during the night. It didn't matter if the moon was in, the moon was out. Didn't matter. That was the sensation, and I finally was able to nail it down. It occurred to me, and I said, "That's the same feeling I used to get, when I was at my property. There's that strange feeling."
Well, you said there was one other thing, too, that happened with that hole that was unusual, besides the story about the dog.
There's a lot of unusual things about it. There's a specific unusual thing that you know about it.
Well,
the one thing that it was said. Are we talking about the thing where people would see like the dark black shaft of light coming out of it?
no. But tell me about that.
Well, this is something again that was told to me, but it was the people said that from time to time, what they would see when they would look over towards the property, or if they were on my property, and looking at that way, they would see like a shaft of the blackest black that they'd ever seen
Coming out of the hole.
coming out of the hole and extending up into the sky.
Oh.
It was like just the...
That is weird.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Just a big black shaft going up into the sky.
Out of the hole. The
So-
blackest, biggest shaft coming right out of Mel's hole. Right up to the sky.
Remember, guys, it's a 3-year span since he talked to Art. A lot of this is kind of a repeat. But yeah, those are the big creepy things. Now, Art asks if he's ever used a powerful flashlight, to which Mel said that he had. He said that he could see where the stone retaining wall ended, but the flashlight would just run out before he could see the bottom. He wonders how far could he see with a high-powered flashlight.
Just get a searchlight.
Yeah, a goddamn spotlight. You son of a bitch.
Spotlight. There you go.
We'll see. Art says that he likes to scare off reporters with his giant flashlight. Mel agrees. Just recapping the call here, okay? They again talk about how Mel wanted to save his remains placed down the hole when he died because he wanted to see whether or not he would come back from the dead like the dog did before. He talked to many people about the hole and knows that other people know what it is, but they won't tell him. Art says that originally coming onto the show was a big mistake, to which Mel agrees. He went out to the property after he sent the fax and expected to see a bunch of people. He says that he rented an apartment in Ellensburg because a snowstorm had caved in his building up there. He went back to the property the day after the call and says that he saw a group of armed men in yellow gear at his property. Mel said that they told him that there was a plane crash and they knew it was his property, but wouldn't let him up. He didn't see any smoke or anything, but he left and headed back to the town. He called Art later that night, and after his run-in with the armed guards, he is not sure why they were at his property, but thinks it was because he was on Art's show and they knew it. They had the power to find his land right away and made it a big production. The hole must have had a very valuable property if the government wanted it so bad, according to Mel. Mel goes on to say that there was a mix of both military and civilian personnel at his property. He says that many years ago, he was in the army and knows what uniforms look like. He says that he couldn't tell you which army they belonged to. Every person there was armed to the teeth with heavy weapons. At this point, they take another break.
Damn.
After the break, they talk about how the area where the hole is located has some odd happenings, such as a possible alien encounter and the discovery of the Kennewick Man, a prehistoric skeletal specimen.
What the fuck?
And it's like a hot spot of weird shit. So
Maybe it links directly to Skinwalker Ranch, man.
maybe. Mel says that at first they intimidated him and threatened him with possibly finding a drug lab on his property. Again, we've talked about this in the previous episode. He says that he was growing non-native plants for medicinal purposes and that it could easily be considered a drug lab instead if he didn't cooperate. But not long after, they made him a very generous offer, which Mel is able to talk about. They put together a very interesting package and a lease of the property in perpetuity. Mel accepted the offer and moved to Australia. He says that part of the conditions for the lease was that he received $250,000 a month.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, this is back in 1997. So that
I would do it.
Well,
Are you kidding me?
And what is that? $3 million a year?
That's disgusting.
Yeah. Art confirms that Mel was in Australia and that he was in correspondence with him while he was there. Mel was specifically located in Perth, Western Australia, which he said he loved. Mel says that he built some facilities to grow and cultivate the various plants that he was allowed to bring with him when he moved.
I would laugh if, like, the new property he's on, there's this big hole in the backyard. He's like, God damn it.
The hole follows Mel. It's always behind him.
It is.
It's
Mel's
always
hole.
behind him.
It's legitimately Mel's hole. It just follows him. Oh, my God.
He also mentioned that he was able to work on the wombat rescue, an endangered species at the time, and that they were making a comeback thanks to the work he was doing. Art wonders what went wrong. Mel says that initially, after accepting the deal, he was rushed away. He had to leave his car, was driven to San Francisco, and hopped on a plane for Australia. He was allowed to take his 2 dogs with him, and he already had an account set up for him and ready to go for his move. His departure was all handled by the government and the Australian government. He was to receive $3 million a year on the lease for the land and was to follow a non-disclosure agreement in regards to the little that he knew about the hole in the property.
How long would this $3 million a year go for?
Perpetuity. It's supposed to go on forever.
Good God.
Yeah. Art agrees that he would have taken the money and ran as well. One of the things that Mel did while in Australia was to continue his work on the herbs and was able to cultivate the plants that he had brought with him. He says that plants that he brought that were grown near the hole displayed some rather unusual attributes. Plants that weren't from the hole did not show the same properties. At this point, Art wants to hear what happened to Australia and Mel being so well off. They talk about how Mel was supposed to be on the show at some point, but was a no-show. On the day that he was going to be on the show, he helped his nephew move from his apartment to the Olympia area. They had to return the truck back to Tacoma, and Mel was to take the bus back down to Olympia. He says that he got on the bus, and there was an altercation. They moved into the Park and Ride and Transit Authority, where they're to ask questions about what happened during the ride.
You just fucking growl.
I got mad. He got to the transit bus for a ride back to Olympia and says this was the last thing that he remembered.
All right. So back to me for a couple stories, eh? I'm really intrigued to see what he's doing in Australia with $3 million a year. And what you said, 97?
Yeah.
It's a hell of a retirement.
You buy a house like in cash every month.
Buy a house. You could buy a house in cash every month.
Yeah,
for
like
the rest of your life.
Nice houses too.
On the beach in Australia. Like, this beach is now mine.
My beach.
I want to visit Australia, but I don't think I could live there because literally every creature wants you dead.
Yeah, kangaroo. Dude, they're ripped. They'll kill you.
Yeah, they'll kill you. Every spider there has like wings.
There was a guy who tried to box a kangaroo, I guess, and the kangaroo just hit him.
Oh, I know.
Once, and he was gone.
Yeah, they're mean. Okay, so this comes from Needs More Tuba. We were about to explore an abandoned farmhouse, but we found a dead deer, maybe, on the side of the house, and got kind of freaked out. Then I saw movement inside the house that we thought was a person, and I took off running. My friends convinced me to go back the next day, and upon returning, we discovered the deer had been reduced to a pile of bones that were basically picked clean.
You gotta go. Gotta go.
I'm not sure what could eat an entire deer overnight, but I guess it's possible?
Yep, I'd be gone.
That's like some Texas Chainsaw Massacre, wrong turn, hills have eyes shit.
I just saw a leather face in the distance.
Right. And he has another story too. I think this one does have some pictures, so we'll just have to read and go without the pictures piece. But when I was a teenager, I explored a farmhouse that had been abandoned for 20 years. Like, where's this guy finding all these abandoned farmhouses?
Hey, maybe he just searches for him, you know? Like, that's a creepy barn. Let's go look and see if there's any cows in it. Moo moo, motherfucker.
The cow was living alone in this barn for 35 years. It was fluorescent green.
I'm gonna call her Bertha.
Big Bertha. She had 12 udders.
Oh, God. In 3 eyes.
3 eyes.
Don't drink the milk. Don't drink the milk.
It's Kool-Aid.
It's radioactive, man.
It's radioactive Kool-Aid. The creepy thing about it was when the family had literally abandoned the house, leaving everything behind to start fresh. Inside the house was everything the family had owned, many things in the exact place where they were last used. Clothes hung in every closet, dishes sat in the drying rack, soap and toilet paper were still in the bathroom, at first anyways. Toys were scattered about the upstairs bedroom with a cardboard sign that read, "No adults allowed." The most interesting thing was a notebook on the kitchen counter where the kids wrote notes to the parents and each other. Grocery lists, reminders of after-school activities, little bits of evidence into their former lives. Several years later, I was able to Google their names and contacted one of them to learn the whole story.
I'm interested. Here it is.
Well, it doesn't follow up on anything. That's stupid.
What? He ends it there?
No, it doesn't end, but it just said there are 2 sets of photos in this album, and it has a link. And then it says the black and white set was taken in 2002, and the color set was taken in 2005, right before it was torn down. The black and white photos were taken on 35mm film, and when I got them back from the photo lab, there was something weird in one of them that looks like a ghost face. I've never been able to explain it, but here's that photo if you'd like to try. Yeah, but he never tells us the whole story.
That seems like quite the cliffhanger.
What a freaking letdown.
Yeah. He's like probably hoping someone would ask, like, hey, what was the story? And he just never got it.
Unless it was like just boring. Like, yeah, we were in like Witsec and we left.
Yeah, we were just bored. Yeah, everything's boring.
We came into $3 million a year and decided we could have better things.
You see, there was a hole on our property. My dad, Mel, leased it out to the government.
Probably. Yeah, I'm a little upset that they didn't follow up with the story. That's stupid.
Yeah.
His name is I Need More Tuba. We need more context. Okay, this is from Sushinko Demon, I guess. The government decided to buy a bunch of houses that surrounded a lake and were downhill from a river because, I assume, they flooded so badly and so often. My buddy lived in one of these houses at the time, so we always had the inside scoop of which houses were abandoned. Countless fun nights were spent breaking into, exploring, and looting these extravagant lake houses. Fucking looters? I feel like I should say anything left behind was going in the trash, and the houses were being demolished soon, so it was a victimless crime. It's like you knew what I was going to say. Anyways, one night we decided to return to a house that we previously explored, because the loot there was plentiful and worth a second look. We pick the lock and stumble in, drinking and laughing. All is going well until we get into the kitchen in the back of the house, and my friend is like, "No way, how did we miss these?" While inspecting 2 pristine bikes lined up against the wall.
Oh, let's ride bikes.
They're not alone. Everyone seemed excited, but I was the first to realize exactly what this meant.
Who rode those bikes?
2 bikes in an abandoned house that weren't even there a week before? We were not alone in this house. I shushed everyone and explained the situation. They realized I was definitely right and that we needed to leave immediately. No one wanted to end up confronting a potential homeless or crackhead in the middle of the night.
Some homicidal cyclist.
Watch as it's like just like 2 kids playing with a Ouija board in the attic.
I do 2 things. I ride bikes and I stab people.
In that order. Or you stab people while riding a bike.
Yeah, that's even better.
We snuck out the front door without incident, and I apologized for intruding and scaring the people who were likely upstairs. None of us explored upstairs that night, but I remember almost going up alone at one point that night. Glad I didn't.
Fuck yeah. All right, so Mel, he's on a bus, altercation. People ask him questions, and all of a sudden, he gets wheezy.
Wheezy?
Yeah. He collapses or something happens. There's a lapse in memory. About 12 days later, he found himself in San Francisco in an alley. He brings up the fact that he looks like Willie Nelson and that some bums were trying to get him to sing them a song. Art is stunned, and Mel says that he had gotten on the bus to go back to Olympia and that it was the last thing he remembered before waking up almost 2 weeks later.
The hell?
He said that he had no wallet, keys, or anything else. He was just in the clothes he was wearing when he was helping his nephew move. He said that his arm hurt, and he rolled up his sleeve and noticed that he still had a residue of tape from an IV. So somebody put him down for 12 days. Weird. He thinks he was kept knocked out for 12 days and that he was shocked to find out that he had no back teeth.
What the fuck?
His molars had been removed while he was unconscious. He's able to get in touch with his nephew, who sends him a ticket for a Greyhound bus. His nephew says that he was frantic during the time Mel was gone, and so was Art. He had scars in his mouth where his teeth were removed, and he still could taste blood from the removal. Art says that he was screwing with someone he shouldn't have been, and Mel thinks that it might not have been related to him planning to be back on the show. Mel may have gotten himself in trouble otherwise, but Art thinks it's all connected. The next thing he finds out is there is a legal action against him on behalf of his former wife. She had leased the land to him as part of their divorce settlement. At this point, they take one more break. As the show comes back, Mel mentions that he was also missing his custom belt buckle. He made it out of bending a silver fork, adding some nice rocks that he had found on it. See, that's what you do when you're like living in the middle of nowhere. He's like, I'm going to bend a fork, make a belt out of it. He goes back to talking about legal action and that he was given the land by his ex-wife because the land was basically useless. The papers he was served stated that he was in violation of the lease he had with her. The violations were an underground fuel system, a septic tank, and paved roads. These were all things that were not supposed to occur under the original lease, but were done by the people who had leased the land from Mel. He and his ex-wife had an understanding, and he was giving her $25,000 a month. He's so bad off that he has to sell plasma at this point in order to buy cigarettes. But there are things that he just has to know, including the Mexican fellow who used to toss tires down the hole.
Why is he so bad off?
I guess he just spent his money or something like that.
He's getting $3 million a month.
Not anymore. Like he violated the lease contract. He doesn't really get into it, but apparently like he either spent his money or like it got taken back.
Oh.
Like his assets got frozen. So he's also trying to get a hold of a Catholic priest. It's kind of like weird, but he says he's a Hungarian fellow with connections to the hole that Mel wants to track down, although he doesn't really get into it.
This whole thing just went down to the fucking rabbit hole.
Getting weird. The plants that he had grown originally on the property and then in Australia had remarkable properties that had been known about for at least 100 years. He declines to say the name of the plants, but does talk about how they were used to treat the great influenza at the turn of the century.
He's just growing weed.
Probably.
It fixes glaucoma real well, too.
It makes me see better. The mix was a concoction of Indian plants that cured them. Mel says that he is 68 years old and had a simple life before all of this happened, and things have been extraordinary the last few years. He wants to figure things out and tie up some loose ends. One person he needs to find and contact is a gentleman that he gave an old gun to he had found on the property. One day on his property, he dug up a gun and a holster. And when he had moved to his apartment, when the snow caved in on his house, he gave the gun to the landlord as a deposit. Mel describes the pistol as being like an old Nazi P-38 from World War II. He's been unable to get in touch with the person he gave it to and has found out that he has left his family, his wife, and has simply vanished. After talking to his son, Mel says that the guy he gave the gun to became obsessed with it and that he said he would shoot it and it would make no sound. Art remembers Mel talking about that years before when they first started talking. He also said that he would set up a gun near the radio and it would pick up signals from all over the place, both past and present. He could wave his hands and it would change broadcasts from both different areas and different times. Art speculates that anyone who had ever come in contact with the hole ran into problems. Mel talks about how the Mexican guy who used to throw tires down there once had issues with his truck, and his son went out to help him with it. Mel had given him a couple of paint buckets full of rocks and metal shards that he had collected around the property to put in the back of his car for added weight to get out of the snow and mud. Mel wants to track down those buckets. While in Australia, he worked with the Ministry of Health and had given some of the plants that he had brought back with him from the property so that they could treat some men who were near death with the AIDS virus.
I never would have thought that the story would go this way. Like we're talking about some guy who had a never-ending hole in his backyard, and now he's like moved to Australia. He's growing plants. He's selling here. He just woke up with his molars missing.
Mel says that they were no longer sick and were fine. Mel left Australia just to be with his family, which Art thinks was a big mistake after what happened. If he had stayed there, he might have been doing well. Mel agrees and wishes that he was there on the beaches because the girls in tiny swimsuits. Now he's back in America and has nothing of his own. Mel just wants to find the Hungarian and the priest to find out what? It's going off the rails. It's going off the rails.
It's just like you're going. I need to find that Hungarian in the priest.
They'll tell me what that hole's about. God damn it!
That's what my life is now: is finding this Hungarian in the priest.
Yeah.
The story just went so far into left field.
He's just trying to figure out all about that hole.
I'm trying to figure out what the hell I'm listening to.
He says his nephew's writing a book about what happened, and Art mentions that people have been writing songs about him and his story. Mel's nephew even had a CD called The Ballad of Mel's Hole. He also had drinks named after him. You guys ready for this?
I'm so ready for this.
I saw that and I'm like, let's fucking find the song.
Oh no.
Around and throw their trash down in to see how deep the hole was and listen for its end. Then one day, that fateful day, they forced Mel off to land. They paid him off and sent him off down under with a plan. They hid Mel's hole and covered it up so ne'er it could be found, so no one would ever know what's deep down in Mel's ground. Yippee-yi-yay, yippee-yi-oh. There's no bottom to in eastern Washington.
What the hell?
Oh, be wary, my dear one.
Oh.
Go ride alone at night on that Manistash Ridge, but listen carefully to the moaning deep wind. Yippee-yi-yay.
He's gonna make a sense to the whole thing.
Yeah.
For if you call into our bell on coast to coast again, you may disappear on the stash in the deep dark hole within. Yippee-yi-yay.
We'll cut it out there.
The hell was that? Like sudden applause in the third EPIA?
Man, yippee-yi-yay, man.
Yippee-yi-yay.
I thought that was so funny when I found that. I'm like, I got to add it to the show.
Coming soon to the #1 spot on Spotify. It's Mel's Hole.
Anyways, guys, we're going to wrap up the last little bit of the third call. So, since he's been back, Mel has not tried to go back to the hole at all. He's just trying to figure out everything. And get things worked out with his ex-wife and warn her that she may be barking up the wrong tree. Mel just wants a small piece to live and a place that he can continue to work. Mel makes a joke about how he had a hole and now he's been shafted.
Such a good joke. He tried so hard not to laugh.
Mel asked about a fax that he had sent, to which Art said he hadn't read it because of some specific names included. Mel thinks that there is a very strong connection between his hole and the Heaven's Gate incident. His original call was around a month before that situation happened. Mel gave out his email address, which is melwaters@home.com, hoping that anyone relating to him and his hole from before would contact him. The show runs out of time, and Mel says his goodbye, but says that you may not have heard the last of the story, and tells his ex that she owes him. All right, so we're going to send Mel an email right now from Enter the Abyss.
And hopefully he responds. Maybe we can get the latest scoop on his hole. Clickety clackety click. The email is about to be sent.
Subject, your hole.
Classy.
Dear Mel, we are doing a podcast about your hole. Please email us back, and we'd love to have you on it. Cheers. Enter the Abyss. Happy face.
Wow. There
Sent.
we go. Well, hopefully Mel gets back to us here. I literally didn't think that this story was going to go that south.
There's 2 more calls, man. It gets weird.
Oh, there's more?
Yeah, there's 2 more calls, and then we'll get into theories.
Okay. I was going to say, because like when we covered it the first, I'm like, okay. And you're like, oh, we got a second part. And I'm like, oh, I thought we already covered it. And you're like, oh, we got a third part. And I'm like, we're just going to be covering the same shit. But boy, was I wrong.
Damn it. melwaters@home.com doesn't exist anymore. That's too bad. I was excited.
Well, Mel, if you're listening, please email us, entertheabysspod@gmail.com.
Maybe he's already been thrown in the hole. Maybe he's dead.
Well, there's only one way to contact him now. Spirit box.
Spirit box.
Okay, so I'm going to do one last story because I think it's kind of creepy, and then we'll wrap it up. So this comes from Noradale. I live in a very small southern town where there isn't much to do. So my friends and I always go explore this abandoned hotel on a hill overlooking my town. Usually things were pretty normal, but the last time we went, things were very off. First of all, when we first walked into the lobby, there was a really ominous blue barrel with the lid sealed shut.
People are in the barrel.
We thought it might have been there before, but when we looked at some old videos from other times we had gone, there was no barrel in sight. We then entered a corridor that led to the pool. In this corridor, there was a small shelf attached to the wall. Usually there was nothing on the shelf except a few beer cans, but this time, I shit you not, there was a whole pile of human hair. I'm talking like a whole head. It was attached to what we were pretty sure was a scalp.
Oh my God.
It was wet and looked shriveled up. We booked it out of that place and never went back. Still not sure what it was or if it was real.
You should call the cops in that situation.
Yeah. If you find a scalp next to a swimming pool in the Overlook Hotel.
You know what? We're just going to leave.
And they said that and there's a comment that says maybe the body was in the barrel.
Yeah, maybe we should just head out.
Yeah. That's a good time to leave.
Yeah, I'd be out.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us for our third
Installment
episode
of Mel's Hole.
of the hole belonging to Mel, formerly belonging to Mel.
All right, guys. Well, we're at about 144 subscribers on YouTube. We're about 60% there with time watched for monetization. So if you've listened to us on YouTube and you've liked what you've heard, please subscribe as it really helps us out. And if you want to give us suggestions on future episodes, send us an email at entertheabysspod@gmail.com.
On that note, too, we posted on our Facebook a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to kind of shout out. We did surpass 10,000 listens on our, it's through our Buzzsprout, but it does go through like all of our Spotify, Apple, everything there, not including YouTube. So with YouTube, we're well beyond that. But again, just a huge thank you for supporting our show. The growth that we continue to see is awesome. We have a lot of plans. So like Cleet said, you know, follow us, like us, share us, get us out there. And thank you so much from the bottom of the abyss.
And as always, thank you for entering the abyss.
Until next time.